You'll have a copy of the minutes from September 25th for regular council, September 25th in camera, October 9th Committee of the Whole, and October 9th in camera meetings. Everybody had a chance to review those, and if there's no errors or omissions, someone make a motion to accept those minutes.
Mr. Warden, I'll move that we accept the minutes from the September 25th regular council meeting.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye, please. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
I'll move that we accept, or I'll move that we approve the September 25th in-camera meeting minutes.
We have a seconder for that also?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you.
I'll move that we approve the October 9th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you.
And lastly, I'll move that we approve the October 9th in-camera meeting minutes. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you, councillors. Last, we have the audit. Grant Thornton is here, and they can come up and bring forth the financial statements.
Thank you very much for asking us to come here. It's our pleasure to be here to present these financial statements. I have with me Chris Ellis, and Chris did the bulk of the work on the audit this year. So I thought I'd bring Chris along in case there's any questions or things that I need a little help with. So we have the financial statements in front of us. Page 1 is our independent auditor's report. Now, the presentation this evening will be fairly high level because we've gone through the financial statements in detail with the audit committee as well as with management. So this will be more of an overview of how our year went and where we stand at the end of March of 2013. Our auditor's report is there. Our auditor's report basically spells out that we are engaged to do the audit of the financial statements. The financial statements are management's responsibility, and it's an unqualified audit report, which basically means we found nothing in the course of doing the audit that would cause us to have to put any kind of qualification in our audit opinion. If we turn to page 3, we see that for the year ended March 31st, 2013, the municipality of Yarmouth. Now, this is a consolidated statement of operations. What that basically means, maybe what we'll do now for just a second, I'll draw your attention if we could turn to page 11. Page 11 spells out what entities are consolidated and what percentage of those entities are consolidated in these financial statements. So these financial statements contain all of the operations of the municipality, the operating fund, reserve funds, capital funds of the municipality of Yarmouth, but also these entities that are here, their results have been included in the percentages that you see in note 3 here. So the Yarmouth International Airport, 38.77% of its results have been included in this consolidated financial statement. The Mariner Center's Management Board, 50% interest has been included in these financial statements. Yarmouth County Solid Waste Management Authority, 40.6%. The Yarmouth Industrial Commission, Area Industrial Commission, 33.3%. And the Yarmouth Acadian Shore Tourism Association, 25%. So when we look at the numbers that we have in our consolidated financial statement, those are the percentage, that's the percentage interest that we have in each of those other organizations. So turning back to page 3 and looking at what our results are for the municipality of Yarmouth, we can see that for the year ended March 2013 on a consolidated basis, our total revenues were $11,317,000 compared to a budget of $10,431,000, excuse me, and our total expenditures at $10,187,000 compared to a budget of $9,986,000. And we've ended up with a surplus before a couple of other items that we'll explain here in a minute of $1,130,000, right? Compared with the surplus the previous year of $1,071,000. If we look at each category here, we can see that for our taxes were budgeted at $7,188,000. Our actual amount was $7,251,000. We actually had a bigger recovery of taxes in the area of fire rates of about $60,000 was the reason for the amount being over budget. And that was to compensate for the fact that we paid a little bit more money to the town of Yarmouth for fire services during the year. Grants in lieu were as expected. Services provided to other governments. That's a recovery for our recreational department from the town of Yarmouth. That's 50% of the costs. Sales of services, and those sales of services we see there are coming over from the management center, the Port Authority and the Commission, the airport, YASTA. So that's berthage, airport fees, YASTA recoveries, etc. That's what's in that $192,000 that we see there. And it was up a little bit from the previous year and actually not too far off of budget. Other revenue from owned sources, there's a lot of things in those as well. Those are things like management fees that we've collected from the Industrial Commission, recreational events, $76,000. But the biggest thing that we see in that $614,000 is our portion coming from the Solid Waste Management Authority. It's about $410,000, which is tipping fees and processing fees. So that's related to the waste. So that's in the 614. Unconditional transfers from other governments, again, that's coming from different areas. In that 755, we see we have our operating grant. There's grants that have been received by the airport. Our portion, again, only is what's showing here of $260,000. There's grants in the Commission of $120,000. In the authority and YASTA as well, there's grants, and there's in the management in the Mariner Center, there's also 75. Conditional transfers from federal and provincial governments. Again, those are not grants directly received by us. Those are grants that we see in the Industrial Commission, the Airport Commission, they're provincial grants, and that's, again, our portion. So when we're looking at $190,000 there, that's our third. For most of the organizations there that we have, other than the Mariner Center, which is 50%, it's mostly for a third. Grants for capital purposes. We saw in the Mariner Center that there was significant capital grants of about $1.4 million. That's our portion, the $597 there. That's monies from ACOA and from the province. In the Mariner Center, there was ACOA grants of $750, and there was Province of Nova Scotia grants of $365. Interest, we've done well with our interest. We've got $380,000 there. That's about $150,000 more than what we've budgeted, and our interest is up about $65,000 from what it was in 2012. The difference between the budget, the interest we make in our reserves, our operating reserve and capital reserve, is not budgeted. That accounts for about $100,000 of that, and then there's about $40,000 of interest that was charged to the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, which wasn't budgeted. So that's the difference between the 380 and the 230,000. But we did very well there. Our other revenues are pretty well as they were last year, and we're budgeted a little low. Rental events, $800,000. That's money coming from register.com, about $338,000 in rent, and that's rental. Our portion of the Mariner Center, about $290,000. And then the Industrial Commission would be rental, would be port fees, etc., and rental in the Industrial Commission. That's actually, we do get some rent in Dom Tex in our portion of that. So that's the $800,000 that we see there, very close to what was budgeted. Food and beverage sales, that's our portion of the revenue in the Mariner Center. So that's our revenue. And again, 11,317 is what was actual versus budgeted, 10,431. And the difference really is more we can see that grants for capital purposes were not budgeted, and conditional transfers, some of the grants in those smaller organizations, the other organizations weren't budgeted. That makes up, that 600 and 200, that makes up the bulk of the difference between where we were budgeted and what our actual was. And, you know, the budget, seeing those two items and knowing what they are, and accumulating the budgets from all of the different subsidiaries in that, we really have come fairly close when looking at that. Our expenditures, when we look at them, our expenditures in total, $10,187,000 budgeted, $9,986,000 is what we ended up with in actual. The biggest difference between the budget and actual is in recreational. And that's because there was no budgeted amount for amortization in the Mariner Center, and that's basically the $200,000 that we're off. Most of our expenses are in line with what we expected. We can see in protective services, we did spend more than last year. That's our fire protection, where we spent about $140,000 more with the town. That's why it went up from $2,109,000 to $2,356,000. Transportation services, the reason that was a bit more than last year and over budget is we spent more money at the airport. Our portion of airport expenses is where that increase came from. The other categories are very close. So at the end, we're ending up with a surplus of $1,130,000. That surplus really, if to break it down, our operating surplus with our reserves, et cetera, at the municipality would be about $570 of that. We had interest in our reserves, and then the capital grants of $595. So those numbers aren't there, but that's the accounting of the $1.1 million surplus. The other two items that we see here, so excess of fair value over purchase price of contributed assets, that is the transfer of the Hebron Industrial Park into the municipal books. So that was transferred effective April 1st for $1. It's being recorded at its fair market value. If we want to turn quickly to page 23, there is an explanation of that in note 19. And we can see in the middle of note 19, related third-party appraisal, so that the property was appraised and it came in as an appraisal of $1,523,000. The debt that was picked up that was related to that property was $116,700. So that number that we see is the difference. The difference between the 1,523 and the 116 is what we see coming into our income statement on page 3, when we go back to page 3 of $1,406,300. The number that we see being reversed out on the income statement of $1,870,000, that's the amount that the asset was on the books of the Industrial Commission for 3 times that number. So that's our portion that was being brought into our books before, because the net book value is about $5.4 million. Of course, what we've determined here by doing the appraisal is that the fair market value is the $1,523,000. So that's being adjusted through the income statement. And so we've got a pickup of 1.406, we've got a reduction of 1,870, and we're ending up with a surplus of $665,000 as a consequence. The other item to make note here in our financial statement, which is affecting what our capital assets are recorded at, is if we look at the bottom, prior period adjustment, note 21, we have an adjustment there of $4,688,000. That's explained in note 21, and basically what that is, note 21 is on page 24. So the accounting principles for nonprofit organizations changed. It used to be that if we had a capital grant that was being used to buy a capital asset, the capital grants would be set up as a deferred liability and be brought into income at the same rate as we were depreciating the asset. So if we bought a building for $10 million and had an $8 million capital grant, on our books, we'd put the $10 million building and we'd depreciate it. Then we'd take the capital grant and we'd bring it into income over time at the same rate as we were depreciating the building. The change that occurred in the accounting principles under nonprofit accounting is that now those capital grants simply go to income. They simply end up in equity and they're no longer deferred. So that portion is our pickup for the assets of the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, is the biggest chunk of that. And that's that number that we see, which has increased our accumulated surplus in total from $19 million up to $24 million. Okay. If we turn the page, page 4 gives us our consolidated financial position. So we can see that where we are at the end of the year, and really, I think the guide or things that certainly Services Nova Scotia looks at is what is the net financial position from the perspective of financial assets of a municipality. And we can see that with our $665,000 surplus, our net financial asset position has strengthened from $1.8 million to $2.4 million. And again, this is a consolidated statement, so this has that same proportion of assets for all of those other organizations that I mentioned earlier. So at the end of the year, we're in a good financial position. We have cash of $6.6 million on a consolidated basis. Our taxes are up a little bit from what they were before. That's basically the taxes receivable by just the municipality. Due from provincial government and its agencies, we have $349,000. That's a gas tax receivable. So the gas tax that we receive in two payments, and we had one payment that related to 2013 of $245,000 that only came in April. Due from own funds and agencies, the $261,000, that's predominantly monies where we've lent those funds to the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, our portion. Other receivables, the biggest part of that is our loans. $276,000 of the $427 are funds that we've lent to the fire departments. So our total financial assets, $8,605,000 compared to $7,752,000. Our financial liabilities, our trade payables were a little bit lower than the previous year. In deferred revenue, we have a portion of our gas tax that's in deferred revenue of $486, and that's $700,000. And then the remaining is unspent sewer funds for the sewer in Port Maitland. Repayable contributions has gone up. There's, as a consequence of bringing in the Industrial Commission, transferring over the Hebron Industrial Park, there's amounts that are owed to the town of Yarmouth and the municipality of Argyle related to that. Our long-term debt, so we have cash, but we also do have long-term debt. Our long-term debt is explained in Note 6. Note 6 is on page 13. And we can see that what we've picked up as a consequence, the Municipal Finance Corp, that's the money that the $2.6 million is what's left owing on the building here. And the Municipal Finance, there's a $297 there that's owing, which was on the sewer. And we have $158,000, which is our portion of a loan at the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, which is on the school board building. The funds that were used to build that building, part of the port. So that shows us our debt. If we go back to page 4, we have a defined benefit pension plan liability that has to do with the retired clerk of the municipality of Yarmouth. There should be an actual valuation prepared for the year ended March 31st, 2014, which will update that number this year. And other post-employment benefits are specified in Note 8, $517,000. Those are amounts that are owing to employees of the municipality of Yarmouth. That's a calculation that's done for service awards and for unused sick time. So that's the 517. So we're ending up in a position, a favorable position of $2,455,000 compared to $1,867,000. That really is the number that's the benchmark, I believe, for municipalities. Under that line, we have our non-financial assets, and so our tangible capital assets, which are all of the fixed assets that we have, the property and equipment and vehicles and land, etc., are at $23,983,000. And again, that number includes our applicable portion for all of the other organizations. And so our accumulated surplus is coming in at $26,524,000. The following page, just very quickly, on page 5, does show where some of our funds have gone. And we can see that this is it explains the change in net financial assets more from the perspective of what did we actually spend on tangible capital assets, and that's $1,762,000. The bulk of that, again, there's $1 million of that is the Mariner Center, and out of the other $700,000, our biggest capital expenditure last year was the sidewalks that we saw on Vancouver Street and the Grove Road. This shows as well that the depreciation that's been taken on the assets of the municipality at $1,159,000. So I don't propose to go into any further detail really on the financial statements. I think page 4 kind of is the financial picture as to where we are at the end of March of 2013. So at this time, if there are any questions at all, we certainly would do our best to answer them. I realize there's a lot of information there, and as I said, it is something that we've gone through in greater detail with the audit committee, who has then approved the statements.
Thank you, Paul. Do we have any? Questions?
I think, as a member of the audit committee, Paul, I'd just like to thank you for the time you spent a few days ago with the audit committee and informing the audit committee, and we will be taking action on a number of items that we discussed at the meeting moving forward to improve the internal audit controls and so forth within the municipality. So that's something that we're going to be working on as an audit committee, and just wanted to inform the public of that.
Yeah, good.
Thanks for your work.
Okay, thank you very much. So these financial statements, one of the things that happens, of course, they become final only upon council approving the financial statements. It's generally accepted accounting principles now. So they're in final just as soon as you approve them. If you don't approve them, then they're not complete. Right? And I believe there was some reserve transfers that we talked about as well that are part and parcel of this financial statement. Right? Okay.
You mentioned that the net financial assets is sort of a good datum or picture of a municipality. Are there benchmarks that we would look at in comparison with other municipalities to say, you know, this is a ratio that should be within this range? And
and we discussed that a little bit at the audit committee, and I believe Greg Shea has talked about that. So that is produced. I mean, it's with Services Nova Scotia. I think there is information on their website. It takes them time because, of course, they have to have all of these, and I know there's it takes them some time to get all of these and then to put the information. But I know in years gone by, they certainly have had, they have the towns, in one category, they have municipalities in another category, and they probably have the larger municipalities that have gone through amalgamation, and that is a great place to look, to benchmark, to see, because it really, where should we be and how do we compare with the others is really where you should go with that.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion to approve the financial statements this time, or? Okay, I'll move that we accept the audited financial statements for Municipality District of Yarmouth as circulated. Mr. Chair, I'll move that the Municipality District of Yarmouth transfer $200,000 to operating reserve and $500,000 to the capital reserve.
Second.
Got it. Business arising, we have some recommendations from Committee of the Whole on October 9th. The first one was the MCAP draft document, and that's been a recommendation from Committee of the Whole to approve the draft of the Municipal Climate Change Action Plan as presented to Council.
I'll move that we approve the MCAP draft document is presented to council.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. The second one is a recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to write a letter to NS Provincial Lotteries and Casino Corporation questioning why events around Responsible Gambling Awareness Week are not planned for Yarmouth. And I might add that I seen a response to that in the Vanguard, so I don't know if you want to pursue, Councillor Anthony, you brought that up, if you want to pursue writing a letter now, or what's your wishes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I spoke too quickly at our Committee of the Whole meeting. The reason why I was upset was basically Yarmouth hadn't been included, but we had been received that information just a few days prior to our meeting. And not that I didn't have time to investigate and so on, but the Vanguard, Carla Allen, done some research before she put anything in the paper, which a good reporter always does. And she found out that Yarmouth had been included, I believe, in 2011, 2009. I think every 2 years Yarmouth had been included. So 2 years ago, we were part of that, I guess that project that they do going around and so on. So if no other councillor has any concerns or anything, I'll withdraw my suggestion that we send a letter to the Nova Scotia Gaming.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Carla, for getting that settled for us before we wrote the letter. So, new business, you have the September development report there. You've all had a chance to review it. What's your wishes? I'm looking for a motion to accept that development report if there's no errors or discrepancies.
I move to accept that development report as circulated.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you. We have a letter there, 7.2, and I'm not quite sure. So I don't know. Can you update us on that, Ken? Do you understand what's going on with that? It was a letter, and I don't know how we got involved in picking addresses, or if that's just a mistake.
Okay, I guess the first we heard of it was we were contacted by the hospital board indicating that Canada Post had, a representative that they spoke with at Canada Post had indicated that we were responsible for these changes. And so upon further inquiry with Canada Post, we did get a subsequent response, which I just was circulated with today, and I'll try to get it up here and read it. It was sorry, just bear with me for a second here. I'm just trying to find it. We made an inquiry to Canada Post representative Frank Sullivan, and he did respond, and his response, I'll just read, it's fairly brief. He said, "I have no idea who would have said that. I would never tell a customer the municipality was responsible for the new mailing address changes. I do tell them they are responsible for assigning civics which is a whole different matter. And obviously, we do create and assign new civic numbers, but every dwelling out there has a civic number. So he goes on to say, the puzzling thing is only a few people know you were provided with a directory list of the changes. And he was going to contact the attached number, I believe, with the health authority to sort of try to iron out where that information came from, but it was erroneous. Anyway, we're not responsible for Canada Post changing all those mailing addresses and for all those community mailboxes. It's not our doing, and it just didn't look very good when people come looking at us and saying, well, why did you do that?
Thank you, Ken. So if no further discussion, we'll move on. 7.3 is Remembrance Day is coming up, and as a council, we have to decide who wishes to be going where and presenting wreaths on behalf of the municipality. So traditionally, I do the Mariner Center and Arcadia School. If that's okay, I'll continue to do those. If not, if someone else wishes to, I have no issue with that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be doing the Carleton Legion, or sorry, not the Carleton Legion, since the Legion is closed up, but I'll be doing the one at the Carleton Cenotaph. This year is going to be a little bit different. This is a direction to staff. It used to be that the former Legion of the Carleton would send us the bill. However, this time I'm going to have to get my own wreath through the municipality rather than. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Warden, were you interested in doing Port Maitland? Could you find time to do that, or would you rather someone else? Okay. Thank you. And that brings us to Maple Grove. Anybody want to go to Maple Grove and present that wreath?
Mr. Chair, what day is the wreath being presented at Maple Grove? Because I understood it's a school day. Wouldn't be on the 11th, correct?
November 8th at 1 o'clock. November 8th, the 11th or 8th? November 8th at 1 o'clock, Councillor.
I would be willing to do that.
Okay. I think that covers them. Then I'm just going to double check. I'm going to do Arcadia School. Yeah. Unless someone else wants to go to Arcadia School, if not, it's in my district, but I have no issue. All right. Hearing none. 7.4, we have a letter from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 61, Remembrance Day as far as. Oh, I thought he forgot to turn his mic off. I'm sorry.
No, just wondering if the arrangements have been made. I could ask that later on. Is the wreath going to be at Maple Grove, or?
They'll pick it up. Tradition. We pick it up here. You'll have them probably 3 or 4 days ahead. So, yeah, they'll be ready a couple days ahead, Councillor. You have 7.4 is cost sharing the use of the Mariner Center for the Remembrance Service. Any discussion on that? Councillor.
Also move that the municipality pay our share.
You're on, Joe.
Oh,
Yeah.
Steven seconded it, but I was just going to make a point that I have no problems with doing a half, up to half. What I do prefer is that we also include in this letter that we put in a request that they put this in the normal time that every other budgetary issues come up, things like that. So could we also add that in there? Or I should ask the question first, has that already been done, or was it something that we might have missed?
Actually, there was an allowance for it. It just was not enough. There's an additional $303, I believe it is. So we're only talking about an additional $303 over what we'd already approved
Okay.
for the actual rental costs.
So is the motion gonna have to be modified to include that, or?
The motion can simply be to cover up to half. We've already got the greater portion of it approved, so this would only be a $303 addition.
All right, thank you for your clarification.
Deputy Warden, did I hear you, that you seconded that motion? Okay. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. 7.5 is a letter from Frank Grant, Recreation. What's the wishes of council on that?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that the municipality write a letter of support to host Old Timers baseball. Pardon me? In principle, yes.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried.
Okay. Since Yarmouth and Acadian Shores already has a paid position to bring in events like this, I just have to ask any member of the Recreation Committee if Rick Albright has been included in any discussions or any negotiations or any setup of this, because Yarmouth and Acadian Shores has a person that does a lot of this work, and I'm just wondering if we ain't duplicating services by using our recreation director to be doing something that we already have a paid position to do with, because that very well falls under the envelope of tourism activities in this area, heads in the bed. So I'm just asking that question of anyone on the Recreation Committee.
Just to respond to Councillor Cunningham's request, I don't recall Rick's name being brought up by name, but I'll absolutely do that next time, just to make sure. I think it's an excellent point that that YASTA be included in any discussions related to events of a high pitch nature. All right, you got the magic touch, Ken? Okay, so you know that committee only meets once every couple of months, but we'll take that up next time.
Just bring that up, because it's maybe a lot of work that Frank will be doing that maybe that we could share on.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just a suggestion. It's not saying that no, the Recreation Committee should do it, or yes they should. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying maybe just duplicate services, or if you need some help, that Rick would be. Maybe we can make it bigger.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that Rick could work on.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
That's a great idea. I just wanted to answer maybe why he may not have been contacted at this point. I think typically what happens, and I used to play in this league, is, and I've gone to nationals before, this particular event's been hosted here twice, and what happens is there has to be a host team within the league, a league in the country, a recognized league. And so this is an initial letter of application to host the tournament again. I'm certain that they would involve YASTA and all other willing organizers to assist with carrying this off. It's just to get the application in initially. The event has been hosted here 3 times, I think. 3 times, yeah. Raymond would know. Yeah. And this is probably one of their favorite venues, has been Yarmouth. It's always been fantastic here. So they almost ask us to put a bid in usually. So I mean, this is just the initial step, but there will be lots of planning, and I'm sure that Rick would be a big asset to that and YASTA. So just to let you know, that's probably why this is in the initial stages.
Thank you, councillors in CAO. Did you? Okay.
Yeah. I just want to make one more comment. It's because YAST has only been in existence since 2010, and we're really trying to get events like this to make sure that they're happening. But I forgot that, yes, you're right, that we had to have a host team, but certainly I ain't going to put YAST on the line with saying anything, but I just thought it was something that it should be brought up and included.
Thank you. 7.6. I'll let the CAO speak to that.
Just now that the provincial election's over and the Premier has appointed his cabinet, I just thought it's usually customary for us to send letters of congratulations and introduction, so to speak, and wish them well and indicate that we're eagerly looking forward to working with them. So we typically would do that to, you know, in respect to the Premier, the Minister of Service Nova Scotia Municipal Relations, our local MLA who's been successful in his election bid, and usually our neighboring units as a minimum. No, as long as there's consensus, we can do up some letters of congratulatory
I don't
congratulations.
think we need a motion unless there's any objections. We'll just direct staff to go ahead and send out those. Yep. Thank you. We'll strike 7.7 because we had to deal with that in committee of the whole and we haven't dealt with that issue yet. So you have your reports there. Are there any questions of any of the committee members? Hearing none, we'll move down to 9, committee of the whole recommendations. Okay, sorry, in camera.
I have a couple things. One is I would move that we accept the tender for Port Maitland Sewer Generator Building upgrade. Yeah.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Connan. John, did you say you seconded it? Okay. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried.
The other one, Mr. Chair, is I think our CAO and our IT group has managed to get one of our council meetings put up on a YouTube channel. So I'd like to go ahead and move that we establish that as a process moving forward, that we will take archived meetings and place those on YouTube so that they can be viewed not in real time but shortly after the fact.
I'll second that as well.
Seconded by Councillor Connan. And just for the public that's listening or watching, the quality seems to be a lot better. It's the same tape, but the quality and the sound is almost excellent compared to the same tape that's played over Eastling. So I don't know what the issue is, but it is a lot better quality. So any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Was there any further motions coming out in camera? Did we have them all, Liz? Thank you, gentlemen.
We're gonna have to go back again.
Yes, we are. So motion for adjournment? Well, recess anyway. Second, all in favor, say aye.